Hello there and welcome to episode roughly 81 of the Hawthorns Debate Club. My name is Jamie Clay and every week I am joined for a few conversations and discussions by no less than three gentlemen to get through it all today. A trinity, if you will, Father, Son and Holy Spirit, to get all through the news and chatter about West Bromwich Albion. So it is my great pleasure to say a warm hello to my younger brother Joseph Clay.
Hello.
My good friend Alex Collins.
Hello.
And as if an unveiling at the new camp, with packed out stands, people, high anticipation, energy, the ball rolls up to his feet and he starts to do a few kick-ups for the cameras. There's bulbs flashing, fans cheering, a few little Maradona sevens knocked out. It is our new permanent signing to the podcast. I'll put some ominous music. Not ominous, I think that's the wrong word. Like exciting music, dramatic music. Ominous feels like you're going to come in and rip us all apart.
Yeah.
But
fanfare and whatnot, yeah.
Exactly.
Evening, gents. Yeah. You say I'd be more like those guys where have you seen like the unveiling fails where the ball gets rolled to them and they're meant to do a couple of keepy ups, literally, but they're that nervous and everyone's watching and they literally struggle to just do one and they just fail miserably. I think mine would be more like that. I think. Mate,
was that Coutinho who did that when he went to Barcelona?
There's been some big names have done it, haven't they? Where they've just like literally just can't. All of a sudden, whatever the pressure's got to them, they can't just do like two kick-ups. It's just like, yeah, it's hilarious. But
this is a lot of pressure that I'm going to put on you right now. And you can say no. We're all about consent here. But will you film you doing some flick-ups so that we can put it on our social media and that can be part of the unveiling?
I will do, mate. Yeah, I should tell you what, I've been getting quite handy with my little girl. I bought her a Disney princess, like size 3. And
okay. So like Copacabana, Rio de Janeiro beach kind of ball, yeah, like that.
And I've been getting a little bit nifty, a little bit handy with the Disney princess size 3, burying a few bottom corner, a couple of keepy ups and whatnot. So yeah, I'll do it, mate. I'll do it.
Some ruthless finishes against the children is always a satisfying thing. But there was a lot of speculation we wouldn't get it over the line. But this is like our crowning moment. Tom Goff, Baggies, Bullet and Fane, standing with his scarf in the Halfords Lane. It's all signed, sealed and delivered. And we're going to talk about a few wonderful topics today. But first, guys, I want to dust off something that perhaps we haven't ventured towards in recent times, something that we're all familiar with, but perhaps a little bit rusty, because I'd like to take you and imagine we're descending down some stairs now in the theatre of your mind's audience. We've unveiled a dungeon-like door and I pull it back to reveal kind of like a steampunk kind of area, and underneath a veil, a sheet, I throw it back, and there you see the rumblings of our time machine. Not used in a while, but not forgotten about either. And we're going to take it easy for our first time machine encounter. We're only going to go back to Saturday. Because I want to take us back to Hollywood. Hollywood 2025 in Wrexham. There's not many games that I felt last season kind of locked into my memory on a purely WWF narrative style. But this really was because of the whole Disney production, the Ryan Reynolds, the Rob McElhenney, all of that vibe. This game felt like there was so much anticipation, all of the hype, all of the build-up, all of it favouring Wrexham. A lot of people have made this comment, but if you watched all the build-up, you wouldn't have known who Wrexham were playing. And then in come little Rocky Balboa. Are we Rocky Balboa in this story? We are. We're definitely Rocky. They're Apollo. We're Rocky. No, because they lost. Forget the metaphor. In come Albion, ready to upset the party. And so it wasn't just one of these games where the result was satisfying. The narrative unpicking of this Hollywood masterpiece, and up come West Bromwich Albion to spoil the party. I've never watched Welcome to Wrexham, but I am now tempted to binge watch all of the series so that I'm ready for the first episode of the next series or whenever it comes out, so that I can watch with such joy and satisfaction. Let's talk about the Wrexham game. So in we get into the time machine. Everyone in?
Yep.
I'm in.
It's a bit snug now.
It is snug. That's not body shaming Tom. He's a tall gentleman, but he fits in comfortably. And off we go. Anyone want to make a noise?
Beep bop boop beep bop.
I mean, Tom fits in seamlessly here. Right, it's Wrexham. It's Saturday afternoon. They've got some crazy name stadium. What did you guys make of the game? Obviously, it finished 3-2 to Albion. I'm going to start with our new boy, Tom. Get your thoughts and feelings on the game itself.
Yeah, look, I was like you said, we all knew what the build up was going to be like, and we weren't disappointed. So yeah, I was just kind of sat there hoping and praying that we put in a performance, and yeah, we spoiled the party. And like you said, we did exactly that. Look, I think, you know, the pod we did beforehand, I'd gone for a draw. I really did think, I wouldn't say Wrexham weren't up for it. That, you know, there was a great atmosphere at the ground, and like you said, all the build up and the fanfare, etc., etc. I don't know. I was expecting a little bit more from Wrexham. Let's put it that way. Yeah, and again, I'm not kind of taking anything away from our performance, because I thought we were absolutely brilliant on the day, but I thought we were going to get a bit of a tougher game from Wrexham. You know, should I put it that way? You know, 3-2, I think the scoreline probably flatters them a little bit, you know, with them getting that second goal with the last kick of the game, which was a little bit disappointing. 3-1's always got a much nicer look to it, hasn't it? Yeah, look, I went for a draw. I thought it was going to be a tough game. I thought it was going to be really tight, but I was proven wrong. I thought we were absolutely fantastic for vast majority of the game. You know, there was probably a couple of spells throughout where Wrexham got on top a little bit and applied some pressure, but I always felt like we handled it pretty comfortably, and you know, whenever we went forward, we looked to threat. So you know, I was just really pleasantly surprised. Look, you know, I've been impressed with the two games beforehand, but you know, I thought this was going to be a different kind of challenge for Mason, a different kind of test. But what's the word I'm looking for? He's come out. You know,
Smelling of roses.
Smelling of roses. That was what I was kind of. I don't know if that's quite right or not. I think what I was just trying to say was that Mason's just come out looking well again, hasn't he? I thought, you know, it was a great performance from him as well from the sidelines in terms of his game management and when he made the substitutions, which obviously played an important role, etc. So yeah, look, I was just like, you know, I smiled from ear to ear afterwards, not only because of the performance and how good we were on the pitch and you know how we played, etc. But yeah, because like you said, the whole this is Wrexham narrative that was behind it as well, in us well and truly putting a pin in the balloon.
Party season was over. Joe, obviously there was some standout performances in it, notably Isaac Price, but there was like all across the pitch top performances. Who stood out to you?
Hegeba. I just think he's just a complete striker that we haven't had for a while. I know Madja does hold it back, but he drops back and plays the ball out. But Hegeba stays there and puts his presence there, and the defence know about it, don't they? The opposition know about that he's there, and he never gives up. Like, he doesn't look like he's blowing ever. He looks like he's blowing when he starts, to be honest. He's got a kind of that false pretense for their defence, I think. But no,
pretense for the defence. I like that, Joe. That's lyrical.
You know who I am. I have been in a band.
Being a carver.
Yeah. But I just think it's something that we've missed in general from our strikers. He's kind of complete. Yeah, he hasn't scored many goals. He scored one against Derby, but I think that's to come. You know, it's his first season in Championship football. I don't think we can be hoping for that for probably till next season, being more prolific. He gets to know how it's played in the Championship. But there's a few points I want to make on this. Going into this game, Wrexham, it really reminded me of Plymouth last year. You know, that Route 1. I know Wrexham aren't Route 1, but they were playing Route 1 against us because now they've got Kiefer Moore. It's he's massive. I didn't realise how big he is.
Yeah,
he's huge. He made Phillips look so small, and Phillips is a big lad. But he reminded me of that, and I thought, we got one up. It was 1-1. And I thought, this is it. You know, last minute they're going to steal a game, and it's going to be that Hollywood finishing for Wrexham. And it was on ITV, which I thought was crazy as well. I think that must be the first time we've been on ITV in the Championship, which I think was quite nice. It made a lot of Albion fans who can't afford to go to the game or Sky Sports to watch it on normal TV. But as Tom said, the performance was a complete performance. I think Ryan Mason's football is coming out now, and there's an identity of trying hard, and you know, this honesty, what he keeps going on about in it's kind of boring managerial politician speak. I think it's kind of boring, but you can see it's working. They're together. We've signed Moet on a year contract again today, and I just think, apart from that, I just feel like it was an exciting match going against someone who were there to win, really. Wrexham, people were making Wrexham the favourites because it's that first home match. All of the crowd are behind them. I think Albion fans there were brilliant. You could hear them over ITV's audio loudly. And I just think, we just showed up and we only had a couple of mistakes and they were the 2 goals to them. So I think it was a great performance, to be fair.
Brilliant. I think, Alex, both Tom and Joe have both alluded there to the Ryan Mason's kind of chess manoeuvres during the game, moving pieces around the chessboard. Obviously, 2 of the goals come from Isaac Price, and Hegebo is plays an integral role in multiple goals in the game, and obviously scored against Derby. But then the substitutions themselves had a huge role. Talk to us a little about the goals. Talk to us about the impact that the substitutions made at the time, Alex. Cast your expert eye over how that all unfolded.
Okay, I'll just attach my eye. First of all, I would just like to say I think Hegebo is an actual Viking. If he was approaching the shores of England in a boat, I think it'd be quite intimidating for locals.
So if you were a monk in Lindisfarne a few hundred years ago, whenever they existed, you'd have been terrified of a non-goal scoring goal scorer for West Bromwich Albion.
Absolutely. If Hegebo is attending a wedding at this church, I can see people running. I really enjoyed the away fans chant "Deadpool, Deadpool, give us a wave." I thought that was kudos to whoever started that. I thought it was brilliant. But yeah, in terms of Ryan Mason being a genius, bringing on Johnston completely changed the game. Although Grant was playing quite well. I did think when Johnston came on, like his cross for Price's second goal, thought that was really he looked like he wanted to take the situation by both hands, really make a fist of it. And then in terms of his other substitutions, I feel as though he shut up shop a bit. I think he's just really, really clever, like game management. And I don't really like comparing to players or previous managers, but Corberan, he's quite similar to Corberan, quite pragmatic, but not so pragmatic that he's overly cautious and scared to say boo to a goose.
I think. Yeah, go on, Joe.
I disagree with that, and I think it's a thing that we do so much as fans, and I think loads of clubs do this. We always compare. I know it's easy to compare to something else previously, but we compare to a previous manager. And I think Ryan Mason, he's still undetermined at the moment, but he's started off to a good. He's gone off of the races, but we seem to do this quite a lot in the Championship. We seem to get ready quite quick. Our pre-seasons must be good and the players must be switched on. But I think Ryan Mason's a bit more, I think he's got more of a tactical nous than Corberan, to be fair, from his substitutions. Corberan's substitutions were never that good. And you could see that he knew that the tide was turning with Wrexham's performance and, possession. So that's why he brought, Johnston on and Jed Wallace. I'm not the biggest fan of Jed Wallace, but all the comms that have come out about him with all the players, obviously has been a targeted comms around Jed Wallace because there has been some people on his back. But I feel like he brought something as well. I just feel like Ryan Mason is moulding this team into like a happy-go-lucky team, and I think that's where it's different to Corberan. I think Corberan was too tactical, and I think he forgot about the morale, like the togetherness. I think he was very clinical in his way of opposition. Sorry to go against you. I know we don't disagree on this pod, Alex.
Yeah, you've broken the rules, Joe. No, I do. I see where you're coming from. I do think like Corberan, perhaps his work ethic, he seems a lot more disciplined, I guess. Whereas Ryan Mason does have. I mean, it's still early days, but he appears to have a bit more fluidity, or he's not afraid to counter press and do things that are a bit more risky.
Mm-hmm. Early days, but possibly the greatest manager of West Bromwich Albion's entire history. We're saying you heard it here first. Yeah, I think for me I think one of the things turning on this game. Obviously, we go to the matches, me and Alex sit together, and you watch Albion at home, and I'm never really overly worried. Obviously, we play a big team like Leeds last season or whoever it might be, and you think, oh, this will be a tough game, but you always kind of back Albion going into every match. The reverse is true in away matches. I couldn't be more fearful of the lowest opposition, to the point where, obviously, we've been I mean, Sheffield Wednesday away is kind of like the most ominous fixture on Albion season every season, because it seems to be the Jenga piece that causes our whole season to collapse 2 seasons in a row. And our away form under Mowbray, under Corcoran, has been so dogged by awful performances, not just bad results, but really kind of lackluster. I mean, we can sit here and between us, I'm sure we could name not just bad results, but 12 or 13. I don't know why those 2 numbers spring to mind, but like just really dark performances. Do you know what I mean? Not to kind of cast too much of a sinister light over things, but I just thought when they came into this match, we looked more up for it. Whereas in previous away matches, I'd think, when you have a 50-50 ball, well, for Albion to win it, it'd have to be like 80-20 to us. But in this, we felt like we were winning more of the 50-50s. It felt like we were imposing our game plans. And obviously in game state and all of those things, there was a little bit of a shift. Obviously, Wrexham scored, got back into it. But we always looked like we were the better side. We always looked like we were still up for it. We never looked like the goal went in and we stopped playing our game and everything got deflated. Everyone was still giving 100%. Everyone was still chasing down. I think obviously it's difficult to not mention him, but to talk just briefly about Isaac Price, because obviously everyone before this season knew how important a player he was. I don't think he was like an unkept secret or just a secret, that's probably a better way of saying it. Like most people's pick for some sort of kind of key player of the season. And even in my wild predictions, I never expected him to be as impactful as he has been. Again, this game, on another day, he gets a hat-trick. On the first game of the season, he could have had a hat-trick. How good is this guy? Are we getting like too carried away? I know we always get excited about younger players, but how good can he be? Is he like best player in the Championship? Do we need to be worried about losing him this transfer window? Is he that good, Tom?
I think he's that good, yeah. But then to kind of answer your other question, I'm really confident that we're going to have him for the season at least. Unless some absolutely bonkers bid comes in for him, which I can't see happening, because as much as he's had a fantastic start this season, it's still very early days, isn't it? Obviously only a couple of games into the season. He had a bit of a indifferent half of season last year after he came in the January transfer window. So I can't see anyone willing to splash crazy money on him based on what they've seen so far. But you're right, he's starting to turn heads. Not in the club, we all know about his potential already, but I've started seeing more stuff on Twitter, especially, well, Twitter X, football pages, general football pages, second tier football pages, speaking more and more about him already. And I've joked around with a couple of friends saying like Mason's probably having a whisper in his ear, just like, just tone it down a little bit until that transfer window clams shut. Just calm down a little bit, because the start he's made is phenomenal. But yeah, you know me, I'm a big fan of his. Like I said, I'm confident that we're going to keep hold of him for this season, but then I'm also quite confident that what he's going to achieve and what he's going to do for us this season is then going to mean that he's very likely going to go on to pastures new at the end. Yeah, I'm just really excited to see him in an Albion shirt and see it play out for the remainder of the season. A little bit like Pereira that couple of seasons ago when we bought him and we quickly realised that this guy's a different level to everyone else. This guy's destined for bigger and better things. So let's kind of enjoy him whilst we've got him. Kind of going off course slightly, but if it wasn't for COVID, I don't think we probably would have had Pereira for that second season in the Premier League behind closed doors with no fans. We obviously had him for a couple of seasons, but I'm just really looking forward to seeing this guy over the course of the season, because he's just really a joy to watch. And it was a great. One of the commentators said something. I think it was actually in the game against Derby in the Cup, where he's just one of the players. It was so easy to take the simple approach, make the simple pass. He's always looking for that little bit extra, try and make a progressive pass, a little flick around the corner, something to just try and open up the opposition and get us on the attack. And that's what I like about him the most. You can always see him moving and thinking, how can I impact the game, getting into space, etc. As a football fan as well, number 10s attacking midfielders are my favourite players to watch. So really looking forward to seeing what he can do this season. I think he's going to be an absolute star come the end of the season, and there'll be plenty of people clambering for his signature.
I agree, but I blame it on us. We were the catalyst for this. Isaac Price performances, not to take.
You mean us as a podcast?
Yeah, I think so. Because, in the first podcast, we said that they listened to it in the changing room pre-match. I think we mentioned that Isaac Price, the only problem was in the past season, he didn't have a position. He solidified his position in the team and where he plays. And I think Ryan Mason has listened to this and for that, he's going to honour what we asked. And that's why he's playing so well. So
I saw a brilliant tweet afterwards. Someone said Mowbray deserved to be sacked for the fact that he was playing Price at right back.
Yeah, absolutely. Not kidding. It's wild when you think about it.
It is actually wild, isn't it? Like how we all said, didn't we? Like he's got to be playing as a number 10, attacking mid, or at least some sort of forward role, off the main striker. And the vast majority of the fan base to see that, and the man in charge not to be able to. Like I said, I think there was some occasions where it was he had to shift things about. We were low on numbers, etc. But the guy's got star potential, and for me, they're the kind of players that you build a team around. They're not the ones that you fit in square pegs into round holes, etc. You build the team around him, you play them in their favoured spot, and everyone else has to fit.
It's a massive shout, but I feel like he's very similar to Cole Palmer type of essence that he dominates. He will dominate our team, and if he's not in the team, I don't think we'll tick. And I think that happens with Cole Palmer, and he's the man who makes everything tick, isn't it, on an attacking presence?
Yeah, I do agree. I think for me, the exciting thing about this to now know that we hold kind of Ryan Mason's ear is what do we want to, like in an Inception level kind of dream, what do we plant next? I think, Joe, I don't know whether this is getting the snowball rolling on something else, but you made perhaps one of the more bizarre predictions for this season, which was Alex Mowat, top goal scorer. Is there any correlation between the new contract? I wonder if there's some sort of goal scoring bonus written into that now and the anticipation of a 25 goal season coming up for Alex Mowat. He hasn't quite hit the ground running yet, but seasons are long seasons.
Only Price has hit the ground running, to be fair.
You know what? I don't know if that's generally speaking. I think one of the things that's really stood out to me across the season thus far is how well we're playing collectively. There's obviously players that we've all named, and Price and Hegabo and Johnston, and Alex keeps going on about Carl and Grant, and we've all had our say on the different players we love. But across the board, there's been really good performances. I'm still not thrilled about the way the defence looks all the time, but I even think George Campbell coming in looked really good. On Saturday. He played really well, considering that was his first league start and it was against Kiefer Moore, who is biblical, as you say, in terms of his approach to football. It's kind of a proper like baptism of fire, isn't it? Without getting too many religious cliches in there. There was a couple of like mistakes and slip-ups, and obviously we've conceded 2 goals that I think Ryan Mason will be really disappointed with. But at the same time, like there's no one not buying in. There's no kind of passengers during the performances, which I really like. And even though Griffiths doesn't fill me with confidence, he's doing enough. He's doing enough with his feet. I think overall, the Wrexham game has put a little bit to bed some of my nerves about us being Jekyll and Hyde again this season. I do feel like Ryan Mason is going to have us ready to go away from home. And I think that's one of the things that even Corberan didn't do. Corberan seemed to be a manager willing to settle for the point, because a point would have been a great result, as you rightly said, Tom, last against Wrexham, with everything that seemed to be in their favour. But Ryan Mason has ignored that. We've gone out there, we've done our thing and proved that I don't think Wrexham are going to be a top 2 side. I don't think we've beaten the Championship, although don't book any holidays for May, people. Just keep that free. Keep that free. Not for the playoffs. No. So that we can all turn out en masse as a Hawthorns Debate Club live podcast from my car running alongside the open tour bus. Agreed? Yeah. Everyone's in when we're champions. Cool. Right, let's move the conversation on now. Let's talk about another man of the hour. Obviously, we spoke a lot about Wrexham and their celebrity owners, but I think many of us were delighted, obviously, when Lai left and Shilan Patel took over, and it signalled a new chapter in the club's history. But very recently, he did a podcast, the Price of Football podcast, the Kieran Maguire financial business side of football little joint. And I'm now utterly besotted with the man. His charm oozes across the airwaves. And I think he spoke about so many different things. We're going to talk about what impressed you guys, because I know we've all listened to it. But he talked about one thing that I want to kick us off with, and it's something that kind of, it doesn't fly in the face of what we were talking about last week, but he talked about the need for almost owners to be visible nowadays, that the days and the eras of the cloak and dagger anonymous board meeting has gone. And obviously you can take that to one extreme with Tom Brady's and Snoop Dogg's and Deadpool. But Shilan Patel, he's public, he's open with the fans. And like I say, I find the man utterly charming. Alex, I'm going to kick off with you. What were your thoughts on the interview that we listened to?
I mean, I've got to be careful because I don't want to come across as loving him too much, if that's possible. Because I do think he's been amazing, hasn't he? It's nearly 2 years now that he's been with the Albion. To look at the progress that the club has made in those 2 years, really impressive. But the interview, I thought it was really open, really candid. I think he's just a very honest, down-to-earth guy. He appreciates that although the football's a business, he also recognises that it's a cultural asset and it's important for the people that rely, not just for entertainment purposes, but also for their livelihoods on the club. And I think he really recognises that, and he's bought into the community. And you saw at the end of, well, at least I think it was the end of the Wrexham game, where he started off the boing boing.
Yeah, he very much starred it out. I know we've all listened to this, and I know we've all got thoughts and opinions. Joe, what did you make of it? How did you make of it, and what did you make of it?
I actually made some notes.
Oh, wow.
Actually, while I was at work, while I was listening to it. So, no, I've put a few, this is just general notes. He's intelligent. What I come across, he's very intelligent, and obviously he's run very successful businesses. Funny. He had a few jokes in there that made the host laugh, and then he sounded honest, and I think that's the biggest one for all Albion fans, the honesty behind it, the integrity. But it come across that obviously he is a football fan, but business excites him, doesn't it? It's just business in general excites him. All the nuts and crannies would go with business. And some people, they asked the question, what is it about football or something like that? And he gave a example around the Cristiano Ronaldo sale of the disparity between someone being sold for that much when you could buy several clubs for that. And for me, that because of his interest in that kind of, disparity in the business thing, that I'm comfortable with him being in charge of the Albion, because that's a man you want to be in charge, where they're interested about the weird nuts and crannies about business and thinking in that way. And I just feel like I don't want, after watching the Birmingham one, yeah, they're great, let's go full throttle and stuff. And I don't want someone like that. I think he's taking his time, step by step. He's not going to, he's not sprinting to this. I think they're doing it proper. And I think that's, as Albion fans now, I think we need that. Even if he doesn't get us to the Premiership in the next 5 years, but we need to be run properly so that we don't end up going bust, and we were nearly there. So I think for us, he just come across as someone honest, got integrity, enjoys football, but enjoys the business around it. So we've got, a safe pair of hands. And I think very like Ben Foster in goal, a safe pair of hands.
That's wise. I think one of the things that stood out to me, and I want to get your thoughts as well on this, Tom, is he often, you hear him reference himself as a steward of the club rather than the owner. And I think he speaks to himself as being almost part of the chain, recognizing that he's inherited something, but not recognizing that he's the last link in the chain, that he also has to pass it on. Now, obviously, there's two sides to that, in the sense that obviously that he will want to pass it on for a profit. I'm very sure of that. But this idea that he recognizes that it's almost, he's smaller than the club itself. And that was refreshing for me to hear, that so often these owners, it's like their toy, their project, their little football manager save. Whereas I've very much got the understanding that he wants to take West Brom, leave it much better off than it was, and then put it into someone else's hands who can continue the story. What did you make of it all, Tom?
Yeah, no, I agree with that, mate. I thought it was a brilliant interview, like you said, because obviously they kind of asked him a few questions about, his earlier life and how he got into business, etc., etc. And I agree with you. It seems like, this is almost like a next step for him, and it's, his life was a series of steps so far, and this is the next one, and he wants to do it right, and he wants to make the absolute most out of it. So everything that he's come out and said up to now has been really encouraging, and it's been great to hear. But that interview was just kind of like the cherry on the top. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. And like you said, like Joe pointed out, the honesty with it, which I thought was great, was because it would have been so easy for him when they were asking, well, about why West Brom, how did the opportunity, come to you, to just, especially Americans. I've been giving Americans a bit of a bad rep, but it would have been easy for him to say, oh, yeah, I've known about West Brom since I was like, 20 years old. And, I've always had a soft spot for West Brom and the Championship, etc. And there wasn't any BS from him. He was honest and said, that how he came into football was through the big clubs in America and it growing, etc., and the World Cups. And I think he said then he went to travel in Europe and he got a taste of football when he was in Europe. And it only, when it came to West Brom, it was just when the opportunity was presented to him, and that's how he got the ball rolling. But like you said then, everything he's then done since he's come in has just been done in such a mindful manner, which has just been absolutely fantastic. And I think it's one of the reasons why, not only because of him saving the club ultimately, but because of the manner in which he's got about sorting things out and how he's made every effort in terms of the culture and all the different aspects of the club, the foundation and all the disability teams and the women's team. And like you said, Stewart, he's just made every effort to make it known. He wants to be part of that. He wants to know about it. It's not just a photo opportunity. He genuinely has, care to improve things and move every aspect of the club forward. So, I just thought it was absolutely brilliant. When it finished, I had a big smile on my face because I put it in the chat straight away. We're so fortunate, I feel. You look at what's going on with Sheffield Wednesday right now. Every time I see something pop up about Sheffield Wednesday, I just think that could have so easily been us. It nearly was us, wasn't it? For him to come along and everything that he's done since has just been fantastic. So. And I think just the last point I'll make was I think you said at the start, you mentioned obviously like the Tom Brady and the Ryan Reynolds and the Snoop Dogg. And obviously, I won't go into all that side of things, but I think he's seen that there's good balance to be had there between being, like you said, the non-existent owner who's kind of hidden away and you don't hear from him, etc. But then I think there was even a couple, he wasn't taking a dig or a swipe or anything, but there was a couple of moments where he referred to those guys and it's, documentaries, etc. I think he sees that there's a good balance to be somewhere in the middle there in terms of, being present and being involved and being active with the fan base and so on, but not doing too much to a point where it becomes a little bit, just in your face, a little bit cringe at times, a little bit forced. So, I can't fault him. Today, everything he's done has just been superb.
Well, I think it speaks volumes how enthralled the guys from The Price of Football were with him. I mean, they've kind of made that whole industry, the soccernomics, football finance, football business, they've popularized it effectively. And they're not just got a finger on the pulse. They are behind closed doors. They're in a lot of meetings. I know Kieran Maguire is brought in by a lot of clubs as a third-party expert to kind of cast his eye across deals and contracts and chairman and different vetting systems that they've got. And the guys on the podcast seem to be genuinely charmed by him as well. And I think for me, that seal of approval, I mean, they're not, the thing that I like about The Price is Football is that they rarely mince their words. They definitely say if they don't like someone, they'll just say it. They're not looking to make friends. Do you know what I mean? And they both seem to be really, really kind of, like I say, they just both seem to be really listening and kind of connected with everything he was saying. And I think as fans, it was just, I almost was proud, that's our owner. Do you know what I mean? I love that this is our guy, that they're loving chatting to him, and he's ours. Do you know what I mean? That was such a thing. And I'd heard him speak before, actually. Real deep dive listeners will know that the Hawthorns Debate Club, I kind of lifted the name of it from an American football podcast, which it's not called it anymore, but it was called the Around the League Debate Club. And he's actually big into his NFL as well. And he was on that podcast as part of the Host Fantasy League. And he spoke on there about buying Albion. And he spoke, and he was funny, and he is witty, and he's charming. These guys are they're professional podcasters, so they're funny, and they've got quick wit and stuff like that. And he kept up, no problem. And I'm just thrilled that it's not just been successful on the field, that there's this real personable, and they're pros like us. Joe rightly points out in our chat, but this personable, warm caring individual. And so I think the future looks bright. Obviously, don't want to get too carried away, but I feel more confident with him in control than I feel like I expected to feel with him in control. Let's just move the conversation on now. We're still in the transfer window, still navigating those choppy waters. I don't know whether we overuse shipping metaphors or nautical terminology on this podcast. We probably do. But regardless, let's set sail on the good ship transfer. And we've brought in a couple of new players. Obviously, Hegem now has officially left. That's all done and dusted. He's off to Bologna. That's not news. And the end of last week, we brought in Christian Bielik, phonetically fun to say, and Toby Collier from Manchester United. Obviously, they both made run the squad for the game against Wrexham. We only got to see Collier. But what do you make of these signings, Joe? Obviously, Bielik coming in for defensive cover, and Toby Collier, who on various podcasts has been described as anything between Michael Carrick and a more technical Jason Malumbi.
Well, there you go. Well, for a start, Collier has short socks, so it must be good. So,
it does bode well. It does bode well.
Yeah, so it means that he's going to be incredible for us. But no, we didn't really get it. He came on for a good, just over 5-10 minutes, wasn't it? But I'm excited. I think the thing that I think around the young players is Ryan Mason's come from that youth background where you can see potential, I suppose, to promote them up to Spurs when he was in Spurs to the first team. So I kind of trust Ryan Mason with that one, and I don't think he's going to be a star. He might set everything alight, the championship alight, and he might become Malumbi's replacement if he's box to box. Because I remember on the Derby game, Malumbi came on. In a Derby game, he was kind of playing striker, at the end of the game. But I'm excited. I think that's an unknown, and I think we all like an unknown, don't we? Someone to break through, show it up. Like they say, don't fall in love with loan players. But he could be a great player for us, and I think it is going to be a squad season for us, so he will play a lot of games. And then Bielik, watching the Blues documentary today, and he was in there being interviewed on it, and he comes across as a really nice guy, passionate guy, leader, can play in central defence, right back, and he can play in defensive midfielder, the anchor part. Again, I think he could solidify himself into the first team. I think he's going to take some pushing. He's going to have to earn that place, but again, I'm happy about those. They are good squad players to have in the team. And I think normally in the previous season when, you Fran Botters and people like that, you didn't feel like they were going to ever push into the team. And I think this is going to give competition. And they are competition, like Jason Malumbi's position could go straight away. Mowatt's position, even though he's going to be top goal scorer, could go, Campbell, Phillips, you never know. And we have injuries. And I think good to have utility players as well in Bielik.
I'm so pleased that you're going to die on that hill of Mowat top scorers. Other people, less brave men, would have said, I got it wrong. But you're really chasing that down and crashing in the ditch with it. But now, Alex, Tom, any thoughts on Collier and Bielik?
Yeah, I think Bielik was a bit suspicious for me. For Blues to sell him for £1 million, it made me think, is he that good if Blues are selling him? But I don't know if there's something that I don't know about. That's the reason why they've let him
don't
go.
Know about it, to be fair.
Mate, I was the same as you, but I did a little bit of, I don't want to say investigation work.
No, don't be afraid of it. Own it. Detective Goff got on the case.
I went full on Sherlock Holmes, man, and I was doing a bit of digging, and apparently he was first teamer up until January, and then they brought in a couple of new lads in January, and he lost his place ultimately. But I'd say 80% I've seen from there's 20% out there have been saying, "Hey, Baggies buying our second string and this, that, and the other." How the tables have turned and so on, but the vast majority I've seen have said you got a good player there. It kind of more unfortunate circumstances as to how he lost his place, and you've got a good utility man like Joe's saying, a guy who can play in multiple positions, good leader, a lot of experience. He's only 27. And I don't know if you guys caught it, Albion Analysis. Chris Hall did an interview with, I can't remember his name, but he basically brought him in to ask him a few questions about Bielik and get his take why Blues sold him, etc. And it was a good listen, to be fair, because he was saying that I think it might be a little bit of Blues balancing the books as well, because they've obviously made a lot of signings, brought quite a few new additions in, and guys who maybe think they should be playing first team football and so on and so on. So I was a bit like you. It's like, why are we, this guy's not getting a game for Blues, is he going to be good enough for us? But I think he's going to be a good squad player. I remember him when he was a top player, and then he had a few really bad injuries, and that's kind of what knocked him back. And that chap on the Albion Analysis, Chris Hall, was interviewing, said, at one point he was like, he was probably getting close to a £10 million player. He was a full international for Poland, too good for the Championship really, but he had a couple of bad injuries, and that's what kind of set him back. But it sounds like he's overcome them now. So I think it could prove to be a shrewd bit of business that for £1 million. Like you said, we're going to need him over the course of the season, especially when the fixtures come thick and fast. So but yeah, and Colliers, I don't know much about him, to be honest with you. I did see him a couple of times last season for Man United, but we all know kind of how good Man United were last season, so it was difficult to gauge. But I've got quite a few Man United fans, mates who are fans, and they've said, he's a really promising youngster. He played in Europe last season in the Cup for him, had a few games in the Premier League, got a good bit of experience. So they think we've got a real gem on our hands, and he's most definitely going to provide some fierce competition to the likes of Mowat and Malumbi, I think.
Awesome. Alex, I'll leave the final thought with you. What have we got on our hands here? Have we got potential fall in love with a loan? Have we got kind of Championship Defender of the Season? What do you think? The final word with Alex Collins.
When he came on, he did look quite sprightly, but I think it's 44 games left in the season. So not just does that help with injuries, having a good squad, but also, like, when you start reaching the last 10 games of the season, it's important to have those legs and keep people as fit as possible or as rested as possible, like key players. So I think it definitely is a squad game in the Championship, and to enhance our squad is only a positive.
Positives, and more positives. The question, I guess, it prompts with the transfer window looming large, what do we feel like is missing now? What are the final bits of the puzzle? Is there a specific position that you guys think? I know one of the conversations that came up on our chat in our text message thread was the kind of Callum Styles chat. There's a lot of still this polarizing opinions on Callum Styles, and obviously he seems to be in the one position where we don't perhaps have natural cover. But where else is there? Let's start with Styles. Do you think we need a replacement for Styles, or do you think we need backup at the very least? What's the thought there? Joe, come on. Joe's like I see him ready to unmute his mic, ready to unleash.
I don't like him, but to be fair, under Ryan Mason, I've started to like him a bit better. I think Ryan Mason suits him, obviously likes him, but I don't know. It's not his position. I think that always sticks in my mind that it's not what he was brought up as a football player, being a left back. I know he's a utility player, but I don't think we need a replacement. I think we need either an understudy from the youth, or a young player, or someone to give him some competition, where if we need to shore up in some games where we need a big left back, or a centre back. I know I think, is it George Campbell who can play left back as well, but I just feel like he does need some competition, giving him the benefit of the doubt this season, because I think we've got a good manager, a good squad.
How magnanimous of you.
No, but yeah, I don't think we need to replace him as number one. I just think we need to give him some pressure and someone good enough to replace him if he's injured or he starts to obviously perform worse.
Any kind of one going to stand up in Callum Styles' corner and defend his honour?
You guys know my opinion on him. I rate him. I do. I think look, there has been times where he's had one or two bad games, or he's been targeted, so to speak. The one thing that does worry me about him is his height. There was a couple of times in the game against Wrexham where Kiefer Moore, you could see, was kind of positioning himself alongside Styles to try and get some sort of advantage, and I was kind of there biting fingernails nervously, but nothing came about it. But I think he's good. I think I do agree with Joe here. I think we definitely need some competition for. I think the way I look at it with the squad is, what positions, if someone was to get injured for long term, what positions would you be concerned about? And I think left back would definitely be one, just because we haven't got any other left back. Simple as that. So I definitely feel some competition at the very least needs to be brought in. You're talking about elsewhere. I think, if something was to happen to Tom Fellows or Johnson out wide, we're all of a sudden looking really short on numbers out wide. So I do believe we need at least one other winger brought in before the window shuts. And the same goes for central defence. I know we've brought in Bielik, but I think that leaves us with 3 centre-backs, doesn't it? 3 senior centre-backs. It's whether he takes a fancy to Taylor being that 4th and has the faith in him to progress and be able to cover if needs be in the first team. So I still think we're 2 or 3 short, I do, before the window closes. But the question you asked, Jamie, I do think most pressing at this moment in time is most definitely left back, because whether you think Styles is good enough or not, if something was to happen to him, we're all of a sudden having to play a centre back at left back. It's not ideal. So the other interesting one, which we touched on in the last pod as well, is goalkeeper. That's
the one that's in my mind as well.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what you guys think. I'm still really on the fence with this.
Mm-hmm.
There's still a nervousness I have about Griffiths, because he has a bit of a nervousness, if that kind of makes sense. It's like, I think you guys touched on it last time round about that confidence you had with Palmer. He still had a mistake in him here and there, etc., but there was that confidence you had with him in terms of controlling his box, the defence being confident with Palmer behind him. I still don't fully get that from Griffiths and the defence, as a combination. So I'm interested to see how that one plays out. I still think we're going to make a move for a goalkeeper. I'm going to put my neck on the line and say I'll be very surprised if we don't bring in another goalkeeper before the window closes.
That's where my mind went to when I thought about places of obvious need. I know Josh Griffiths is popular. I know that there's a lot of people who listen to this who are huge fans, and I always think we say it so frequently, but you get so much more credit, don't you, being one of our own kind of thing, and you get a little bit more of a longer leash. The mistakes are more tolerated, the kind of underwhelming performances are ignored. And for me, Josh Griffiths, it's that symbiotic relationship that you spoke about there, Tom, with the defence, where do they make him nervous and is he making them nervous? And both are kind of this feedback from one another. And, I don't think that he was at fault really for any of the goals against Wrexham, but there was a part of me that wonders, I wonder with Palmer, does Palmer come and claim the ball there? Does Palmer organise them better? Does he point out that Darnell Furlong's not covering? Does he say someone help Styles or whatever? I don't know whether that's true. Alex, where do you see the vulnerability? I don't know why this has happened again, but Alex, it seems like the final word has come to you. But where do you feel like the void is in the squad that needs filling? The final word with Alex Collins.
So I agree with Joe in that I think we need an orthodox left back, somebody who was born and bred to run down the left wing. And then I think with Griffiths, I think he's young, he's still quite young, and I think he's got to build up his confidence. I remember when Palmer first started playing in the team, he was a bit shaken. I remember feeling similar to how I am now, perhaps not as much, but I did feel quite similar. So I reckon give Griffiths like 10 games or so, and then I think he'll start stabilising, and once he's got his boots firmly on, I think he'll be a good player and potentially worth more. I would quite like a new winger, like an exciting youngster from one of the.
Well, personally, around the house or for Albion?
For the Albion, I'd quite like just an exciting winger to come from one of the top 6 clubs, like Harvey Barnes did. That
8 years ago. 7 years ago. What did we say? Harvey Barnes was 7 years ago. That's astonishing to me. Joe, go on. Joe's got a prediction, a prophecy, so to speak, about the future. So, Joe, cast your eye over the crystal ball and tell us what you see.
I have seen this kind of rumoured, and there's been murmurs about this, but I think Tom was mentioned the goalkeeper shout, and I think last day of the window, Sam Johnston from Wolves on loan. Like, it potentially could be a very easy move. He's not in their squad, is he, at all? So experienced, probably won't come in as number one, but be that experienced backup, potentially to push for number one. But I wouldn't say no. I don't think he's the worst goalkeeper in the world to have, is he? But yeah, I think something like that will be our goalkeeper. I think it might be kind of that loan or that free transfer type of older, because I think Sam Johnston's early 30s or something like that.
Don't know. Sam Smoke and Mirrors Johnston, very, very, very underwhelming player that got a lot more credit than he deserved, in my opinion. But Joe, if that's what the crystal ball says, who are you to argue with it? You know, there's not many things that make us excited. Obviously, we've spoken about the game now and we've spoken about all the various different bits, but there was very few things that have kind of shifted the Richter scale, like this next conversation is going to do in our little WhatsApp chat that we've got as a group. You'll notice from the kind of social media images covering the game that certain managers are kind of attached to certain levels, certain kind of fashion styles on the sidelines. You get kind of the Tony Pulis white sneakers and cap. You get the Jose Mourinho the Pep Guardiola turtleneck. You get your managers that have suits. You get the Arsene Wenger long coat. But one of the things that stood out to all of us, and I think we all noticed it, is the Ryan Mason club shop hoodie that he was sporting with postcode reference on it and everything. And the thing that really tickled all of us was that it actually sold out on the Albion club shop. And we've been talking about it. Like, you know, when Cristiano Ronaldo went on to that press conference and like moved the Coca-Cola thing out of the way, and he said like Agua, like, and it caused like Coca-Cola's stock to drop it and plummet, and like all of these young kids like, Mum and Dad, I don't want Coke anymore, I want water, because that's what Cristiano Ronaldo drinks and stuff like that. Well, I'm wondering, does the kind of same financial repercussions now from product placement utilizing Ryan Mason on the sideline? Tom, you've conjured up some, we're going to talk about the club shop and various different things, but Tom, you've conjured up some relatively funny scenarios. So I'm going to pass over to you to talk about how Albion you feel could best use product placement during the season to shift some products.
That's it. Like, I cannot believe that, like you said, that how it's taken off. Like, I saw him in the hoodie, and I thought, you know what, that's quite tidy, that hoodie. I'm not going to lie, it looked really smart. And I said, you know what, that's decent, that is. But then for it to sell out in a matter of hours, I think after the game, I had people on my page going, "It's sold out. The hoodie, I wanted to get one of those hoodies. It's sold out." And I was like, Jesus, okay. So yeah, I think that the club shop now, you know, they're going to miss a trick now if they, you know, they don't jump on this and think to themselves, well, okay, you know, we wore that one hoodie, it's sold out. What we got to do now is every match day, Ryan's just got to, you know, sneak something onto the sidelines, you know, cameras to pan on him. You know, I was thinking a little bit, do you remember that reserve goalkeeper at that pie that time? You know, the cameras panned to him and he was eating that pie and it was some sort of advertising scam or something, wasn't it? Well, the club shop they've got to follow suit. So like I said to you, you know, pan to Mason and he's there with his Baggy Bird pen and, you know, West Brom press notepad, making a few notes, tactics, etc., etc. Pan back, sun come out, he's put on his baggy bucket hat. You know, he's on the sidelines now, rocking the bucket hat. I think you could get through a lot of the club shop that way, sneaking them on. But then I did say that it would start getting a little bit more difficult when you got to the more obscure items, so like the oven mitt, the lampshade, and my personal favourite was the 5 metre tape measure. So like, you know, maybe you could pan to Mason and he's like measuring up the dugout, you know, just taking a little cheeky little measurement on the dugout, something along those lines. But look, we're just giving it to the club shop on a plate. Like, if they don't take this idea up now, then there's no helping them, is there? Because this is just gold.
Well, I just think the kind of planets have aligned somewhat here. We talked about Shilan Patel and the commercial side of the club, and now this has just presented itself before the club. You absolutely, like you say, it's absolutely crazy for them not to run with this and kind of basically just have him walk out kitted out as Baggy Bird effectively. get him dressed up as Boiler Man 1 week. Do you know what I mean? Really lean into the fact that men in their late 30s think, if Ryan Mason looks good in that, then so can I. What I want you to do, though, guys, I mean, Tom's just alluded to that the Albion club shop is quite eclectic. I think it's actually shocked us all how many different items you can get on it. We've got like a few minutes before this Zoom call finishes, but imagine it's, I don't know, Christmas now, and it's September. It's that time of the year when children are writing Christmas lists to Santa Claus. What would be the top of your list, Joe, coming to the club shop?
I've sent a picture on our WhatsApp group. So I've gone for a mug. So we've got, your standard ones, WBA since 1878. You just got a Baggies mug, the world's best mom. Then you've got Norway, which makes quite a lot of sense because we've got Hegebo. But then we got Canada.
Is that for Baden? Is that for Baden, WBA Canada? Is it literally? Baden, have you got a club in the club shop? If you're listening to this now, you need to get back to us.
Surprise me, mate. That guy's got contacts. That guy, every game I see his banner at the ground, you know what I mean? So I won't put it past him that he's got his own mug now in the club shop.
We haven't had an Albion player since Marcus Haber, so a Canadian Albion player since Marcus Haber, I think. And then
Paul Pescasala died before that.
Yeah, and we've got a Nigerian mug as well. I know we had a JE. But he's not there, so it's just random. There's no more. It's just Norway, Canada,
and Nigeria. Cool. That's quite an interesting collection, actually. Yeah, seemingly now more and more obscure countries that Albion have got with you're going to go and get your Sierra Leone, West Bromwich Albion football mug. No, cool. I mean, that's really touching gift. Tom, you've already referenced one of your particularly pleasing gifts. Anything else, or would you want to just go into detail about the tape measure?
My master plan is, though, I am absolutely terrible at DIY, and what happens more times than not is my father-in-law comes round. The wife, brings the father-in-law to come round and fix something because she knows I cannot. And he's a Wolves fan, so I am definitely thinking of taking my tape measure out of the toolbox and replacing it with the West Brom edition 5-meter tape measure. And then when my father-in-law comes round to undertake, the jobs that I'm incapable of doing, he'll have to utilise the West Brom tape measure.
I thought you were basically going to say you were going to bump off your father-in-law for emasculating you and then use the West Brom shovel.
No, because if I did that, mate, I'd actually have to get good at DIY, and I'd actually have to undertake some of these tasks myself. So, no, I just think what I'll do is I'll let him continue doing that. And because he's a Wolves fan, I will then just kind of, annoy him even more so by making him utilise Albion Shop Edition tools. So more tools, that's what I want, is more tools in the Albion Club Shop to fill my toolbox with to infuriate my father-in-law.
That's really beautiful. Alex, you've got about a minute to describe your dream club shop item.
I think I would go for it's called the Crest bomber jacket.
Ooh.
I think it just looks very very nice, very cool looking, and I'm sure I've seen Ryan Mason wearing it as well, so maybe it'll be the next trend, who knows.
Well, Alex, you're a handsome devil, like Ryan Mason. I'm sure whatever like a coat hanger, whatever you put on, you're going to make other men desire it. My favourite was, because it took me back to a more whimsical time, a simpler time, was the autograph book. I thought that was really a kind of a tasteful thing. And I like the idea of kids still hunting autographs. So that for me is, I think, what I would get. And if you can get it with like a Norway flag on it, more the better. More the better for me. Well, enough tomfoolery, boys. Let's talk about, not that the club shop's tomfoolery. The tomfoolery is what people come to listen to. I know that. But let's talk about our upcoming game against Portsmouth. Pompey, I guess it's our second home game of the season. The feeling around the club at the moment, when you're on social media and stuff, everyone is, I think we're all on board at the moment. I think we've all bought into Project Ryan Mason. Everyone's excited after everything we've just said. Everyone kind of probably got really high hopes for this game, which feels ominous and feels like it could be potential banana skin. But let's get people's view. Joe, what are you expecting coming into this game against Pompey?
A win. honestly wouldn't accept anything less, to be honest. I think these are the teams that we failed to beat last season away and sometimes get a draw at home. I think these are the teams if we want to be pushing for that playoff spot, even advance more than that, we need to be beating Portsmouth. I know we did. I think, who was it? Was it Mowbray's first home game where we beat him like 5-1 or something, wasn't it? But yeah, I expect to win. I don't think Portsmouth are anything scary. I think they're going to be around that relegation place to lower mid-table. I can't say, and it might be because I'm only into the Albion, that I don't really know any Portsmouth players, to be honest. So I don't know who is a threat, but I think we've got enough quality to win the game, and I think we'll go out all attack on this one. I think we'll try and win it in the first half, probably shut up shop a bit, and then cast out with another 3 points.
I just had a quick look at their previous results. They lost 2-1 to Norwich last out, and then they beat Oxford away, first game of the season, 1-0. So it looks as though they're quite tight games. But did you see that interesting stat where the Portsmouth manager, excluding the teams that got relegated or promoted, was the only manager that was still in place for the season for this year?
No.
Yeah.
That's shattering statistic though, mate, that.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it when somebody told it me. But anyway, I think we'll beat them. We'll probably beat them 2-1 as well.
Very good. Tom, what is your expectation about the coming game?
Yeah, no, feeling really confident. Like you said in the past, it's then been followed with a really underwhelming performance, and we've dropped points. But I don't know. I'm getting caught up in it, mate. Look, there's no ifs or buts about it. The Mason train is up and running, and I'm feeling really confident going into this game. I think they're going to be confident, aren't they, after the first two performances in the league? After that win against Wrexham, they're going to be full of confidence. Like you said, second home game of the season, a great opportunity to get another win, and that's then 9 points on the board. Yeah, I think we've got a couple of tricky games after that. So again, looking ahead a little bit, they'll think, we've got to get 3 points here because we've got a few tougher games coming up. So I'm feeling really confident that we can get the win. Like guys have discussed earlier on in the chat, competition for places now as well in the squad, which for me is only a good thing. So I'm normally quite conservative when it comes to predictions, but I think we're going to see another good win and some more goals scored. Yeah, I want to go 3-1 on this one. I think I think we're not quite the finished article in defence, but I think we look really good going forward at this moment in time. And I'm fingers crossed that Hegebo can get his first goal in the league again. I think that'll be a big plus point for him and something he definitely deserves after his first couple of performances he's put in the league.
Is that a Mowat hat trick you're saying there?
No, I'm afraid, mate.
You watch.
No, I get one. He's got a good goal scoring record against Portsmouth, actually. I saw something earlier saying even when he was at Barnsley beforehand, because he scored 2 against them, didn't he, last season when we played them away from home? I'm not sure. Did he get one? He did, didn't he? He got one at home as well. I remember.
Yeah, there's your hat trick.
Game, that game against that Mowbray's first game. I was at the game and he scored one from outside the box, snuck in. So yeah, he scored 3 goals against Portsmouth last season. So there you go, mate. If he's going to get that goal scoring run up and running, then I'd put your money on it starting with Portsmouth this weekend.
Yeah, I'm just combining all his goals from his previous seasons into this season, if that's allowed to be done.
I mean, not traditionally how it's done, but I think the statistic you were looking for, Tom, there about Alex Mowat on average scores 3 goals every time he plays Portsmouth. I think that's the statistic. So if he continues with that form, I suspect that he might score 3 goals against Portsmouth and really get the ball running on this kind of Erling Haaland adjacent season that Joe's got mapped out for him. I think for me, the game coming up against Portsmouth it's got a little bit of banana skin vibe. When you just like Albion fans aren't allowed to have nice things vibe, like we've definitely got the sense that it almost feels like Portsmouth are walking into a buzzsaw, and that never really tends to be the case. I'd be really impressed. It's one of those old cliches, isn't it? That there's something about when like the truly dominant team just goes out there and dominates. It's almost harder than being the underdog and overperforming and beating like the bigger team on your day. But to be able to have a plan and execute on it is sometimes even more difficult. So I feel like for us to be what I imagine will be heavy favourites against Portsmouth and then just go out there and blow them out the water, I think that would be, I'd be really impressed with Ryan Mason if he can motivate that level of kind of performance and get a more spectacular result. I am going to go 5-2. I think the defence is still a bit leaky, but I think we get 5. I think it's spread around the team a bit more. I think Isaac Price gets another goal. I think Johnston gets a goal. I think Carlin Grant gets a goal for Alex, and he runs to the Woodman corner, and they embrace, tears in both their eyes, forgiveness and restoration very much present. And I think Arne Hegebo gets his goal. And one of the defenders, but I can't specify who, will score. Is that 5 goals yet? Yes, it is. I think. And Alex Murk gets a hat-trick as well. 5-2. Well, the abundance of conversation there shows that we've probably reached the end of our time together. Thank you for listening to us. We've been really taken aback, really, by how lovely and warm the sentiments have been to us returning. Particular thank you for everyone who reached out and kind of congratulated, is that the right word, us on Tom joining us, and everyone seems to think it's a really good match, and so do we. We love Tom. We're excited about what he brings to the podcast. His passion for Albion, his knowledge and his insight has been something that we've tuned into for years, the three of us, and I know many of you will be following Baggies Bulletin, and you've listened to Tom and you've heard his analysis of games, his previews of games, so we're really excited to have him on board. So thank you for everyone who's reached out about that as well. But let's bring this plane to land, as we often do at the Debate Club, and say a very big thank you to you, Joseph Clay.
Cheers.
Thank you to you, Alexander Collins.
Cheers.
And thank you to you, Thomas Xavier Goff.
I'm just wiping away a tear after that little monologue there, man. Beautiful, but yeah, thank you.
And all that remains for me to say is thank you and sweet dreams.